There is so much exciting stuff happened in this place in the last couple of years. I'm losing count, and the possibilities with this football club in the coming years are endless. But one little area that you wouldn't necessarily put at the top of your list for a bit of excitement is our fullbacks. But I'm going to be talking about on this video why I'm starting to see a bit of the wider plan from Mr. Eddie Howe and what the future could hold for our defence and also our attack. If you're curious, and I feel like you are, do us a little favour, Newcastle fans, and make sure you stick around for a lovely little dollop of black and white band. Welcome back to Black White Band, you lovely ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I'm outside St James's Park. I may as well pop up a tent for these videos I've been doing recently. But if I was to ask you what your happiest memories in this beautiful place have been in the last couple of years, some of you might say Alexander Isak banging one in, one of our best strikers of years. Some of you might say Bruno with his magic hat. Some of you might even say the lap of honour or the Champions League nights or the cup finals. But something that's exciting me right now, but also with our future ahead, is our fullbacks. Now, more recently, and in some Newcastle fans' opinions, long overdue, Eddie Howe has decided to play more of Lewis Hall. The man brought in on loan from Chelsea with a view to buy, exciting talent. All of us really keen to watch him play at left back for us. And Tino Livramento, another big money signing in the summer. Now, Livramento's had more game time this season. Who could forget that awful penalty decision against him in the Champions League over in PSG? He has played, and when he's played, he's been immaculate. Man of the match after man of the match. Lewis Hall has finally come in more recently. And what I am now starting to see is Eddie Howe's wider plan for this football club. But with the players we also currently have away from those two, we have a pretty decent... Things look pretty decent for the next year to 2 years. So let's get into why. I think generally speaking, everyone knows how Eddie Howe likes to play by now. Intensity being our identity. Intensity being our identity. Intensity being our identity. Don't try and tell me you're not sick of hearing that, because I'm sick of saying it. And it's starting to get a little bit on the cringe side. But it's true. It really is. And yes, I've done many videos on how I think Eddie Howe is not the one-trick pony some people are making out. He's been very tactically adaptive in different matches this season, and he's learned as the season's gone on that he cannot just play one way. But with all the injuries we've had, he's been a little bit restricted. But now that Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento have come into this football club, we are looking at two quite exciting attacking fullbacks. And with the options that we have, who've been a bit more of a mainstay in this team, we are going to be looking at a team that starts to suit Eddie Howe's style of play even more. At Burnley on Saturday, we saw exactly what Lewis Hall and Livramento can bring. Both very different players on either side. I will not deny that at all. Lewis Hall has played in midfield in his career before. Very good in the pass. Very good in the pass. Whether it's a long pass, whether it's a short pass, whether it's a ball over the top, whether it's a through ball, the man can use that left foot and hit up people pretty well. And we saw it. Look at Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson's contribution for Longstaff's goal. That all started with a high pass to Callum Wilson's chest that he took down. He drove into the box. He then pulled it back for Murphy, who pulled it in for Longstaff. It was a well-worked goal from start to finish, but we saw Lewis Hall, how comfortable he was on the ball. And when he was at Chelsea, he moved into a midfield. And I said earlier in the season on a video, and I will try and dig it out, I said on that one that I thought Eddie Howe was bringing him in to use him as an inverted midfielder to change that system, and he would have no issues playing there. Now, do I think Lewis Hall is the finished article? No. And I think some of the hype, when he's come in more recently, around the time of the Everton and West Ham game, when we've gone on this little run that we found ourselves on, forgetting about the Crystal Palace match, of course, I did think some of the hype was a little bit over the top. I thought he was playing okay, but not doing anything incredible. I think Lewis Hall is a player who needs to spend a lot of this summer in the gym. Not pumping steroids and turning into Joe Linton 2.0 by no means, but just improving that strength. I still see Lewis Hall as a player who can be a little bit flimsy in the tackle, and certainly not one of his strong points is bullying a winger and winning any sort of strength battle, whether it's hugging the touchline, a shoulder, you name it. I think his heading ability is always something that Lewis Hall is going to struggle with. I ran the stats on him when he came into this club. His heading is not there. But we are not on this video to talk about what he's not good at. We are here to talk about what he is good at. His ball carrying stats are some of the best out of all our defenders who play that position down the left hand side this season, and that's quite remarkable to think that Lewis Hall has only just come in and Dan Burn has played so much football, which leads me on to Dan Burn. What did I mean at the start of this video when I said Eddie Howe in the next year to 2 years might have options to change things? We are going to play against teams that are going to be a little bit more aerially dominant and try and really play the Sean Dyche way. And yes, you can argue that Sean Dyche, that's a stereotype, a bit like the Big Sam style of football. Well, no. The numbers suggest that Everton play the most long passes in the Premier League, so the Sean Dyche stereotype sticks. So that's why I'm using them as an example. Dan Burn has some of the best aerial success statistics, not only at this football club, but in the Premier League in that position. And it's no surprise. The man's the Jolly Green Giant, if anyone's old enough to remember that Sweet Corn advert. That's what he is. And I think Eddie Howe will have an option, and I know there's going to be Newcastle fans watching this saying, Matthew, get Dan Burn and left back, those two phrases, out of the same sentence now. Those days are long gone. Maybe so, but what Dan Burn has proved in the last 3 or 4 matches is that we can adapt to a 5 at the back system with the Lewis Hall, with a Matt Targett. Yes, Matt Targett does exist. He has not been kidnapped like a very poor sequel to the Taken movie. He is somewhere in the background, probably sunning it up in Benidorm with a €1 bottle of Amstel. He is still at this football club, and he might come back into the fray in the summer. He might even get some time over in Australia, who knows. But we do have options there at left back. Dan Burn has proved that he can play as part of a back 5, which we've seen work really, really well against Tottenham, not so well at Crystal Palace, away at Nottingham Forest earlier in the season, which was a win in the end that pushed Bruno on a bit further. And those type of tactical, adaptive changes are only going to make us a stronger outfit next season. So say, for example, we are playing in Ipswich Town at home. Ipswich Town might be a little bit weak on the defensive side if we assume, based off stats, that a newly promoted side are not going to be high flying into the top 10. Who knows, Ipswich could be the exception of that rule. They could do with Leicester City, but we might play a bit more attacking in that match next year. That's when Lewis Hall comes into the fold, and just like Burnley away on Saturday, we absolutely smash it. And his ball carrying stats and his passing stats and his support of Anthony Gordon is crucial. The following week we might play Sean Dyche's Everton, still playing exactly the same. That's when, away from home, Everton might overload that box. Dan Burn could be a very useful player to bring in, and it's that sort of adaptive team that suits us against different opposition that will make us a stronger outfit. Now let's go over to the right hand side. Tino on the overlap. One of the best Newcastle songs of the last couple of years, that, by the way. Kraft and Dermot at the back. Tino on the overlap. I love it. Tino Livramento, absolutely fantastic ball carrier, and I think what we are seeing in Tino Livramento, in my opinion, is most definitely a future England star. Kyle Walker is the best right back to grace the Premier League in its history, in my opinion, but Tino Livramento is not only fantastic in his decision making, in tackling, his ball recovery is brilliant, his interceptions are brilliant, but the man is also absolutely fantastic at carrying the ball forward, and we saw that in his goal earlier in the season in injury time. Can't remember off the top of my head who that was against, but when he took on 1, 2, 3 and he got a little bit lucky, I think it was against Wolves in injury time, and he deserved that goal. And he's the sort of player, in my opinion, that can adapt to playing slightly further forward and on that right hand side. And what we are looking at there is, in my opinion, if we can keep him at the football club for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, which is what Eddie Howe's plan was, we could be looking at one of our best defenders for God knows how many years, because Kieran Trippier already comes into that conversation, but he has not been with us probably as long as what we would have liked. But that brings me on to the topic of him. There are many reports that Kieran Trippier is going to stay with Newcastle next season. I'm delighted about that. The man is not done by any means. Look at his assist stats. Look what he's done for us when he's actually played. Yes, we had a little dip when his mental health, we led to believe, went down a bit of a rabbit hole in and around that awful that night down at Chelsea in the League Cup quarter final. I understand that. He's allowed it. He's done so much for us. He started this project that we're on. But to have Livramento and Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier is a crosser of the ball, and the stats show that. Livramento does not like to cross the ball. Lewis Hall, generally speaking, is not a crosser of the ball. They are ball carriers. Livramento especially is not the player who's going to constantly whip one in. He's the player who's going to cause a defender a headache by coming inside. And we saw it away at PSG with that Alexander Isak goal, which is the one I always go back to in my head. We saw it against Burnley on Saturday. Look how far forward he was when Callum Wilson set him up and he should have scored. If he can work on his finishing when he supports us in the box, we could also be looking at a great goal-scoring fullback. And Kieran Trippier and him complement each other, because there are times when Kieran Trippier being on the pitch with that wand of a right foot that he can have on his day, getting balls into the box, will really suit this Newcastle team. Because Callum Wilson, if he's still at the football club, which I've done a separate video on, that's exactly what he needs, service. Alexander Isak, depending on how the match is going and who the opposition is, needs service. And Kieran Trippier, I'm not going to talk about his free kicks, because let's face it, he hasn't scored one for a hell of a long time. So Kieran Trippier over the wall is starting to get a bit redundant. But what I am hammering home here, Newcastle fans, is left back Lewis Hall and Dan Burn. Very different, but have strengths in different positions. Dan Burn playing in that 5 at the back on the left hand side, but also covering when Lewis Hall goes forward, is very adaptive for Eddie Howe from a tactical point of view. Let's go to the right hand side. Livramento, ball carrier, pacey, could even play on the right hand side of midfield if needs be. My God, if we have an injury crisis, but I don't even like to say those words. And Kieran Trippier, fantastic at whipping a ball in, a leader, a voice in the back 4, back 5. Very different players again. What we are having, and I know Dan Burn and Kieran Trippier are only going to be around for a short spell, which is why I said that we are going to be very tactically adaptive with everyone fit for the next year to 2 years. But my God, is it exciting, and I'm starting to see what Eddie Howe has started to do slowly but surely. Lewis Hall, we believed that he wasn't ready when he first came into the football club, and a lot of Newcastle fans lost faith. Well, if there's one man that has not stopped me from losing faith in his methods and what he's tried to do, it's Eddie Howe. He's made mistakes, but now he felt the time was right for Lewis Hall to start being bedded in. He's starting to bed him in, and the results are starting to show. And I don't think he's the finished article by any means. Livramento has only been kept out of this team as a mainstay because Kieran Trippier has been the leader and so vital, not just with what he does with the ball at his feet, but a bit of that. And the fact that we will have all of these options going into next season, dolloped on with a bit of Emil Kraft. Say what you want about Krafu. He's not the best in the world, he never will be, but he's an international footballer who has not seen much game time and is contributing to this team in a difficult period. Matt Targett, I forgot what Matt Targett even looked like. I think he looked like a Harry Potter extra, but I remember him being pretty steady. Not a world beater, but pretty steady, but he's just disappeared off the face of the earth. And I just think that our two fullbacks could, and I say could in inverted commas, be two of the most exciting attacking fullbacks in the Premier League in years to come, because we know that the Premier League now is adapted to a system where a fullback needs to be pretty good, as Livramento is, as Lewis Hall maybe still has a bit of work to do, but they need to be very good at the other end. And Eddie Howe's style of play, generally speaking, suits attacking fullbacks, supporting your Anthony Gordons and your hopefully your new right midfielders, or your Harvey Barnes, or your Isaacs on the left hand side, you name it. And I just think the future is really bright. And what I saw at Burnley on Saturday was two fullbacks giving us an extra dimension, because with Gordon and Jacob Murphy there was an overload down the wings, and the midfield did not know their arse from their elbow, the Burnley midfield and the Burnley defence. Because do I follow Lewis Hall? Do I follow Livramento? Do I follow Jacob Murphy? Do I stay with Anthony Gordon? It was brilliant, and I really see a bit of a plan to make us a little bit more tactically adaptive, but having the squad when everybody is fit to really, really attack things and go after things next season. And isn't it exciting? Newcastle fans, drop down in the comments, let me know your thoughts on Lewis Hall at left back and Tino on the overlap. Let me know, are they getting you excited? Do you see them as our future, or do you think that Lewis Hall still has a little bit to do? I want to know. And if you haven't already, if you've stuck around this long, do us a little favour, drop us a little likey Lou. That goes a very long way. What that subscribe button if you're new to Black and White Banter as well, and get Black and White across all social media, your TikToks, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your Twitters. Hit me up. I'm writing blogs, I'm doing videos like this in my spare time outside St James's Park, because I love this Football Club behind me. Thank you very much for watching. On to Brighton we go on Saturday, and hopefully another step forward to European football. But I tell you what, if we do get there, we've got some pretty exciting options at left back and right back that might be able to go after those European Cups a little bit stronger. Away, Eddie Howe's next.